All right,
Yo,
here we go. We're
oh,
getting started. So I'm gonna do a little fifth and wine work first, and then we'll get the Kalispell. Tara's about 42 or something with the wine, something like that, I think. So anyway, it's fun. We decided to give our wine drinkers a little break on their liver for a week, and so I'll just say ahead of time I don't know shit about beer. But I'm learning. I bought a book. It's called I think it's called Beer for Dummies or something. And I'm probably about 20% of the way through that, so probably going to know a lot about beer and probably teach these guys from the Kalispell Brewing Company a little bit tonight, as long as we talk about wine. So Fifth and Wine has a logo that our friend Ryan Soria, who I think is on this video tonight, designed. And you just crossed out wine, you put beer underneath. We sold growlers. We actually put in a 12-tap beer system, which we have, I think, one left or two, maybe two left, I think, beers on tap, because my son keeps doing work for us, and then he comes in and drinks beer for free. So well, I guess it's not for free, he's doing work. But we're trading out beer for work with my son, which works out great. Let's see what else. So we've been doing this for 4 weeks now. So that's 20 episodes of wine. And I always yell at our customers because that's kind of how I am. And so it's fun that I get new customers so I can start yelling at you people again. So today we did a Cubano sandwich. And I told people that I had one in Great Falls and I didn't like it. And I'm not going to say who it was because I don't want to disparage anybody, but it had zero flavor. And so I did a Cubano today. Not me, I guess Wayne and I are cooked too. But anyway, we made our own aioli. We put pepperoncinis. We made our own salad, sauce or whatever, dressing. And then put a pickle on it. And then actually brushed the outside of the ciabatta that we bought and put it in a panini grill, which is all really nice, except for 27 of you ordered it today, almost all at the same time, which is just ridiculous. Like, seriously, we had like 19 of you order it before noon. Give me a break. Can we just think about what's going on in the restaurant world a little bit and try to, maybe some of you order at noon and some of you order at 12:15 and some of you order at 12:45. Yeah, I know you guys are trying to support us. I get it, but I just want to complain a little bit about that for a minute. And so don't order all tomorrow. And we actually had to unthaw some smoked pork that we did a week ago because we sold so many of them in the middle of lunch. So we unthawed everything we have, which is 3 quarts. So I don't know. You guys do what you want tomorrow, whatever. It'll all work out. Oh, Tara's going to show you what it looks like. I'm looking at my notes. This is how this is going. Just give me a minute. Oh yeah, and my side dish. Once Tara shows you, we had to send my son to the store as part of the trade out to get more of the side dish, which is Lay's potato chips with a blood orange olive oil infused over the top of it. So that we put a lot of effort into the side dish. I usually like to start these things with a story. Since I don't know much about, there it is, the Cubano. Since I don't know much about beer, and I keep talking about my son, I guess, Jake and I worked at Holter Lake Lodge for, 2006, 2007, I guess, the summers, and we saved all our tip money, and we went to Europe for 6 weeks. And one of the things that we got to do was go to Heidelberg, Germany, and he was single at the time. Well, I guess we both were, but he was single and young. And there was a college in Heidelberg, and there's full of good-looking German girls. So he decided that we had to stay there longer than he would think. And we were at I think it was a 600-year-old bar, whatever they call bars in Germany. And it was full of these big wooden tables, and they all have little initials in them carved in. And so Jake takes his knife out, or I don't know, whatever, a wine key probably, and starts carving in our initials and the year. And the lady, I think it was the lady, came over and said, no, you can't carve in our tables. Jake's like, what do you mean I can't carve in your tables? The tables are full of carvings. He's like, yeah, 600 years of carvings, the tables don't last anymore. So we're not really allowing that anymore. So then Jake, of course, did this. And so we have our initials really small in a bar in Heidelberg where we drank beer. And the segue to that is Cody and I had conversations about how the Kalispell Brewing Company kind of follows a lot of the German rules, or I don't know if they're rules, German ways of brewing beer. So maybe we could start on that, huh, Cody? Or Warren? I guess Warren.
Silent.
Cody, you're on silent.
All right. Hello. This is Cody. Can anyone hear me?
Yes. Cody, wait, before you start, I forgot. So Cody can't get his visual working tonight. So he's about 6'5", blonde hair, blue eye, Norwegian guy, you know, just a complete stud. Just since you can't see him, just kind of wanted to describe him. So go ahead.
All right. Well, yeah, I'd like to say that was true, but anyway, after I kind of get through the introduction here, I'll do a little more troubleshooting. So my apologies. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. And we're honored to join you guys here at Fifth and Wine tonight and turn it into beer for the week. And yeah, I got to meet Mark. Oh, what was it? A couple months ago now, Mark, something like that.
Yeah.
And was on a sales run down in Great Falls and stopped in there to the bar room and got to sit down with him and one of his bartenders, and we got to taste some beer and get to know each other and kind of start a relationship. So I appreciate you reaching out to us, Mark, and excited to talk about some beer tonight. So thank you.
Yeah, you bet. It's fun. So I guess maybe tell us about your story of you know, how you got into this world. Were you a home brewer, or I mean, what's your story getting into the brewery world?
Gotcha. Yeah, I'll kind of talk about the ownership real quick. So the brewery was started 6 years ago by Cole Schneider and Maggie Dougherty, married couple. And I'm kind of a newcomer to the scene here. I've been with the team going on about a year and a half now. So predominantly what got me into this business was just a love for beer and just a little bit of tenacity. I applied for the job several different times, and they kept calling me back for interviews and follow-up interviews, and eventually I got my foot in the door. And my focus as the general manager is kind of an all-encompassing umbrella, if you will, but kind of, you know, people-oriented and business-oriented. And I did homebrew a little bit on my own, but nothing too grandiose or anything like that. So I came in here more on the people side of things than the beer side.
So I have a question already. In order you should drink the beer, Warren or Cody, either one can jump in. Would you think there's a...
Yeah, I'll kind of hand this part off to Warren here. He's kind of the beer expert. So go ahead, Warren.
So it's my understanding that you guys have Pilsner, Dunkel, and Stout. Is that correct?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
So I know it's kind of deceiving when you look at the beers for their color, but if I were to tell you which beers to drink first, I would start with the Dunkel, then I would go to the Pilsner, and then I would go to the Stout.
Nice.
We're already changing.
We're changing it up already. All right.
The reason being is we like to keep people's taste buds as fresh as possible when they're trying our beer. And the Dunkel is actually the lighter tasting beer. It's the lowest on the IBU scale, also known as International Bittering Units, or essentially how many hops we stick into this beer. So it's the easier one to start with, leading into the Pilsner, nice German pills, nice hoppy pills, and then into our big, bold Stout. So probably won't taste anything after the Stout. We've already started there. That's fine. We'll do what we can.
So obviously I'm a neophyte in the beer world, and you know, I think we talked a lot with winemakers in the last few weeks, and kind of, you know, like in the wine world, we would think a Sauvignon Blanc, probably a Viognier first, Sauvignon Blanc, and then maybe a Cabernet. And so is that kind of what we're doing here? I mean, is there different aromas, different flavors, different texture, different everything in the same thing here in our mouth?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. beer is judged in a few different ways, and one of the main ways that we like to judge beer is by sticking with the BJCP, also known as the Beer Judge Certification Program. And this is a certification program, a judging program that's been around forever. And it's got a lot of guidelines on it on what to expect from certain type of beer, starting with appearance, aroma, flavor, mouthfeel, gives an overall impression as well. And we like to stick with that when we're brewing our beers, unless we decide to have a little bit of fun, which is fun to do. So the beers that we have right now are really easily identifiable.
Yeah, I agree with that. So I think we would like to hear, and I've talked with Cody about it, we'd like to hear kind of your adherence to the German style of beer making, and maybe the obsession of the owners or you guys, or can you talk about, and maybe even just tell us about the German styles of beer making?
Of course. So German style of beer is very old. It dates back, to 1500, 1400, 1300. And so it's very old. There's a word called Reinheitsgebot, which means that beer can only have water, hops, malt, and yeast in it. And for the most part, we stick to that. You're not seeing any kind of craziness from us. We're not putting a bunch of fruit puree in a bunch of our beers. We are a true German lager brewery. And lagers, in case anyone is not aware, take really long to make. Just through the fermentation, through the different techniques. And so the beer that we make, the Dunkel that's sitting in front of you and the German Pils that's sitting in front of you, those are two true lagers, German beers. And we brew in a different way that's not really done in North America. It's called decoction. Now, decoction is a method of brewing when beer was first being made, they didn't really have temperature control. We didn't really know how to make beer. We didn't know anything about carbohydrates and turning them into sugar, and we didn't know about yeast. And basically what we knew is that if we took malt, part of the mash, removed it, and then boiled it, and then put it back in, it would taste better. Now we know through science that is called the Maillard reaction, very similar to caramelizing onions. So what happens is we remove part of our mash and we stick it into our boil kettle where we boil it. We essentially bring out the sugars, and then we're caramelizing the sugars in the beer to create a more broad spectrum of flavor in our beer. And the Dunkel is a triple decoction, so we do that 3 times. And so that is a very long process. Excuse me. And the Pilsner is a double decoction. I even brewed one today, and I got there at 8, and I left at 5:30. So it's a long brew day.
Tell us about malt, and where do you get your malt, or what
Sure.
goes on there?
So in our brewery, we are a German brewery, and so to be able to call ourselves German, we use German ingredients. So there's a couple different maltsters in the world, and pretty much the one, if you ask any brewer on the planet, for the most renowned maltster is Weyermann. And so this is malt that is actually grown in Europe and then malted in Germany and then shipped to us. Spare no expense. So we like to use our Weyermann malt in our German lagers. And on top of that, we also like to use traditional noble hops for bittering. So we stick to the German way. We use decoction. We use the right malts. We use the right hops.
Warren, you were saying so many things that I have absolutely no idea. So go back on, what are the noble hops? Like, I know the noble grapes of Alsace. I have no idea what the noble hops are.
Did you say Saaz?
Alsace, the region of wine. Right?
Okay. So that's very, very true for hops as well. Germany has, like the Pacific Northwest, fields and fields of hops. And traditionally, the areas in Germany had their own hops, just like they have their own, and I'm sure I'm very dumbing this down, but much like champagne. And so there are noble hops that were traditionally used in these types of beers that you could only use to be called this type of beer. So a German Pils, you had to use Saaz hops, S-A-A-Z. And you had to use Pilsen malt. And these were all ingredients that were grown in that area. And in order for it to be a German Pils, had to be in these beers.
So these styles, if you're going to compare, I guess not compare, but so tell us what a Pilsner is, what a Dunkel is, what a stout is in your world, and describe maybe even, I guess, the aromas and the flavors and all that on these three beers.
Sure.
But I think just even knowing what a Pilsner and a lager and a stout, and I mean, I'm a dummy, so dumb it down for me.
So there are two types of beer in the world, ales and lagers. We could get a lot more in depth on that, and I could probably chat your ear off for 4 or 5 hours, but we won't do that. I won't punish you enough. So two types of beer in the world, ales and lagers, and the beer is distinguished by the type of yeast that is used to ferment. And ales are used with a traditional top fermenting yeast strain, which means the yeast sits on top of the wort and uses convection and is able to ferment that way. They're bigger. I mean, you can't see them. You can see them, but you know, they're bigger than their cousin, the lager yeast. And lagers are cold fermenting, and they sit at the bottom of a fermentation vessel. So, differences. Lagers traditionally are crisp and clean, and they don't spit off any kind of metabolism flavors, also known as an ester or a phenol, whereas ales ferment warm, and because they ferment warm, they do it much faster, and they can spit out these esters, which can taste like fruits, or phenols, which can taste like clove. So if you've ever had a Hefeweizen, which we make a very wonderful Hefeweizen, you will taste banana and clove, and that comes from the type of ale yeast in that beer. So for German Pils, we use a Munich lager strain. So that's the bottom fermenting lager strain. Takes a long time. Grain to glass to drink our Pils is about 30 days. And because of how slow it ferments, and because we pretty much refuse to send out beer that's not crystal clear. Lagering traditionally is a phrase that's used to describe storage of beer. So you can have a lager that's not lagered, and you can have an ale that's lagered. A little confusing, but lagers, when you lager a beer, you basically keep it cold for a really long time so that any suspended solids drop out. And so I don't know what Pilsner you've got, but mine's pretty clear. There you go.
So tell us about your story into the beer world. You obviously have a lot of knowledge. Where'd you start? Kind of your whole story, and why you're at Kalispell Brewing.
Sure. I've been drinking craft beer probably, I don't know, 15 years or so. Sierra Nevada Pale Ale was kind of my introduction to craft beer, and it kind of exploded from there. I've always drank craft beer because I don't like having any money. And because of that, I kind of decided that I should save some money and make it instead of spending all my money by drinking it. So I actually attend the Brewing Academy of Montana right now. I'm set to graduate in about 3 weeks here, if they let us. And so it's a 2-year program, and I've been brewing commercially now with Kalispell Brewing Company for a year. I was able to sneak in as a bartender while I was going to school. I've done lots of home brewing. Never really liked any of the beer that I made, unfortunately, but the beer that I make now is pretty good. And yeah, I just like to learn as much as I can, and I like to teach about it too. So I welcome.
Is there anybody else doing this whole German style that you know about in Montana?
Sure. Bayern Brewing out of Missoula, they do it. I'm actually not sure if they use decoction. I feel like I've seen their labels before, and it does say decoction on it. There's another brewery that I know of just north of the border in Alberta that does German style, and they're very good. They're called FAR, F-A-H-R. But as far as Montana, I think it's just Bayern and us.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got to be unusual to bring in malt from, and you said yeast too from Germany?
So it's the yeast originated in Germany. Through GMO, we've been able to identify specific strains of yeast, blah blah blah, and so now you can get German yeast from an American yeast supplier.
Can you tell us about the ownership? Because they pretty interesting story too, I think, as far as why they got into this, and I think they seem like fun hippie kind of people.
So Cole Schneider, his family is from Germany, and they actually do go back fairly regularly. I think 3 or 4 times a year to Germany. He's a really cool guy. He's probably one of the smartest guys I've ever met. His background is actually in chemistry, so that's a very important aspect of making alcohol, as I'm sure we all know. And Maggie's really cool too. They're both, I think they're both originally from the Midwest and came to the Flathead Valley, and just like the rest of us, can't leave.
And they bought, was it an old car dealerships downtown or something that they made into the brewery?
Yeah, it's been a few things. Most recently, it was like a workout studio, and at one point it was like a blacksmithy shop or something. But yeah, so it was a car dealership, I believe, an Oldsmobile, I think. And
you guys should probably name a beer after that, like Not Your Daddy's Buick or something.
That's actually, I might take that. I might take that idea. That's the one part of the job that I'm not very good at, is naming. So yeah, it's really cool when you come to our tap room. We've got all the original brick. You can actually see the car logo on the wall and stuff, and it's a really cool building. We're celebrating 6 years, I believe, this summer. They bought the building probably a decade ago, because turns out it takes a long time to open a brewery. Brewing equipment is very, very expensive, and we have top of the line stuff, so I am very, very spoiled.
Nice. So we were just got a couple of questions on the chat. I don't know if you're seeing them or not, but one of them is, do you have a philosophy on having the beer glasses cold or not?
My personal philosophy, and something that I like to tell our bartenders, is chilled glasses are bad. You want to be able to taste your beer. Chilled glass can actually, one, make the beer too cold, and 2, can actually freeze your tongue. So a lot of flavors open up more when beer warms up, much like wine, I'm sure. And I personally do not prescribe to a frozen glass.
So another thing, when Jake and I were in Germany together, we noticed that, in another question online too, we noticed that they're very fond of serving all their different styles of beer, like we are in the wine world, in different glasses. Can you talk about why the aromas change with Pilsners compared to stouts, compared to lagers with a different style of glass? Do you guys serve your beers in different style glasses at Kalispell Brewing?
Yeah, I think we have 5 or 6 different glasses that we use specifically for beer, and it comes from different viewpoints. For example, our Pilsner comes in a flute, and the reason it comes in a flute is so the CO2 can get out there really easily because it's a highly carbonated beer, and you
Just
want to be able to
like
drink it very
champagne, then.
quickly.
Almost like a champagne flute where you want it to get out, right?
Exactly.
Mhm.
Or we serve we have chalices for our higher ABV beers. A lot of times they have big openings on these chalices, and the reason for it is you actually want to stick your nose in there. A lot of these big bold beers have big bold flavors that you really want to get, and if you have that larger opening, you're able to actually get your nose in there and smell it while you drink it.
Nice. How about food pairings? Do you guys do, I don't know, do you guys do food at the
We've
brewery?
got a food truck, but we haven't gone down that world yet for pairing. That is something that I think we both, Cody and I, and our food truck, I think we're both very interested in doing a pairing. As far as beer, it's pretty interesting. You can go on the BJCP website, and they have a lot of pairings, and you see a lot of.
Whoa. What's BJCP?
That's the beer judge certification program that I was yammering about earlier.
Okay.
And surprisingly, a lot of cheese and a lot of meat, predominantly. And it's pretty much beer goes with cheese and meat. So
Yeah, I agree. I think it's fun. Like the German, nobody knows about the German food. It's actually unbelievable. And it varies from the south to the north a lot, just like Italy. I think you can get a lot of different flavors all over Germany. And I guess that's probably the same with beer. But
sure.
not one last, but another question I have is, I think in Riesling world in Germany, where they make all those beautiful Rieslings nobody knows about, there's a ton of rules. Like you can have to harvest at this to call it a Trockenbeeren Auslesen, and you have to, grow on hillsides. You have to hand harvest. Just like we all think German cars are amazing, or, German engineering is amazing. And I think do you guys feel that way in the beer world too, that they have perfected it and they follow the damn rules, and you're gonna get the same thing all the time, right?
100%. And that's why we love the German style of brewing, and that's why we stick to it. You can't. It used to be legality. You couldn't go to Germany and not be in Cologne and be able to get a Kolsch. Like legally, you would have to drink Kolsch in Cologne, and it was like that for a lot of other beers as well. And so these areas, for example, the German Pils, which is our Tuski Brewski, is a German Pils. German Pils was come about because Czech at the time was making Pilsners, and they couldn't make, Germany basically couldn't make a Pilsner because they're like not allowed. And so a German Pils came into being because Czech was making all this money on a Czech Pilsner, and Germany wanted some of this action. And so the German Pils is a direct competitor to this other Pilsner. So it's very territorial.
Yeah. Interesting. I don't know if I have much else. I think Cody we're gonna do a raffle. So
Yeah. Can you guys
are you there,
hear me
Cody?
okay? Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh,
all
there
right?
you are.
There he is.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I told you he's
So-
tall and good looking and always knows just what to say.
Yeah, well, my laptop wouldn't cooperate, so I switched to the trusty old smartphone.
Nice.
But yeah, I saw the comment come across there about doing some seasonal releases. So this is our newest beer here, the Snow Slip Stout. And then come in May, mid-May, probably be available to you guys in stores more towards the end of May, will be our summer seasonal. So that's going to be a pretty fun beer. It's called Polka Bear, and it's a German pale ale. So basically what we did is we took like the idea of a pale ale, but we used all German ingredients. So we used German malt, only German hops, a German yeast strain. And it turned out to be a pretty fun beer because some of those German hops, they put off different flavors than some of the American or Australian or New Zealand varieties. And it's a really pretty unique beer. So look for that one, Polka Bear, to replace the Dunkel. That's going to be kind of our wintertime rotator. That'll be happening in May. and the Polka Bear will run all the way through the summer, and that will be replaced in September by our Oktoberfest. So we do a Marzen lager, very traditional, kind of like our other German stuff, that will go in cans and be on store shelves for you guys to purchase in late August, early September.
It's only going to be available at Fifth and Wine in Great Falls, right?
Hey, yeah, get down there. And you know, once things kind of level out and equalize a little bit, Mark, I'd love to be in touch with you. And if we could get a pipeline of you know, some of our more crafty stuff that's available pretty much only in our tasting room here in Kalispell, if we could get some of that down there to Great Falls, where people can be like, look, we like Kalispell Brewing beer. We don't want to drive to Kalispell to get it, and we've been drinking all the stuff in cans. But if we can get something to you guys to have a little bit of exclusivity behind it, that'd be something I would love to work with you and this amazing customer base on, because this is great. I mean, what do we have? 50-some people in this meeting right now.
Right. Well, that's just the screens. You know, some people have 2 or 3. Nobody's over 6, I've noticed. So that's good.
Yeah.
Ryan Soria is on this thing too. He's our beer guy. So in the world of wine, it's called a sommelier, and there's 4 levels of sommelier. I passed level 1 and failed miserably on level 2. And we have a level 1 and a level 2 cicerone, which is their term, the beer term for, you know, passing, I guess, tests and stuff, tasting tests too. I don't know. Do you guys, Ryan, you want to jump on, or Warren or Cody, do you know?
Well, since my mic's queued up here, what I know about Cicerone is not much, because I have not taken the course personally. However, I do know that it is somewhat expensive, and it's not just a walk in the park. If you're going to work your way up through, you know, level 1, pretty easy from what I understand, but the rest of them, it's not a one size fits all. Like, you have to have the palate to go with it. So not just anybody can become a Cicerone, just like a sommelier. That's sort of my grasp on it. Some of our tasting room staff are certified level 1. But I believe it's a pretty big deal to get all the way through it. So
I'm 15% through the book already. I mean, or maybe 10,
yeah.
maybe 10. I don't know. Something
for
like
level 1 or what?
Cicerone, yeah, level 1. Right.
Nice.
Right. It's probably going to get me a big raise too, Tara. Is that right?
Yeah.
Devin has a question. It says, how do you come up with all the names? Is there a marketing person that is inside the company, or do you do it outside the company, or how does that work?
Yeah, great question. So it's kind of a team effort. We usually have the guys who make the beer have first crack at it, because they're familiar with the process, the ingredients and everything. And, you know, usually there'll be, you know, just a handful of us that throw out some names. Once we find a name, then the process begins, because it's getting harder and harder to name beers, if you can believe it. So then we have to kind of access a database to see, like, okay, is that name taken? Yes or no? And then we kind of start a different flow chart. But there are some breweries, from what I understand, up in Canada, it's pretty popular for, you know, beers to be named name of brewery, style of beer. That is it. And I think we're going to get to a point eventually where the name is, or, you know, the market's so saturated with these creative names, which is really fun. But yeah, it gets to a point where it's just going to be like Kalispell Brewing Kolsch, Kalispell Brewing Stout. So yeah, it's kind of a big process. We use one graphic design firm for all of our can art. We usually get some pretty positive feedback about it, about the can art kind of being unique and kind of stands out on the shelf. And we're really excited to see some of our can art for the Polka Bear coming out in May. We kind of told them to have a little fun with it and run along. So that's kind of the deal: name, art, you know, and then trying to get them trademarked when we do come up with a name.
What do you think naming It's Not Your Father's Oldsmobile Pilsner would be worth? I mean, I'm willing to sell it pretty cheap.
Probably a six-pack.
Yes,
Like
that's
$10.
not bad. I mean, it was a GM dealership, so the Cadillacs kind of stole the show. So if we're gonna sell a beer, you know, we like to kind of pat ourselves on the back sometimes and think our beer is okay. So we'd probably go with more a Cadillac name than an Oldsmobile. You know?
You
Unless
guys
it was
probably
a
don't know
Tornado.
this. I'm gonna teach you two a little something about wine. Cadillac is actually a region in Bordeaux. Did you know that?
I did not.
Oh, yeah, it's one of the regions of Bordeaux. So it's a little AVA, we would call it in America. They call it AOC there, and so that's where they just stole the name, just like Americans always do. We stole Chablis and made it into a bad pink wine instead of a great Chardonnay. So, sorry, I always have to turn it back into wine because that's what I know about it.
Well, no, that's very interesting. Cadillac as a region of Bordeaux.
Right? Crazy.
Lesson learned. Yeah, that's great.
What's your favorite quarantine activity?
So often when we go to wine country, so I went to Pinot Camp, which is a really fun camp. It'd be like you guys going to Dunkel Camp, I guess, or something. But I went to Oregon to that, and we go to the last one. And David Adelsheim is one of the original members of the kind of the founding fathers of the Willamette Valley wine scene. And we show up there, and we've been tasting Pinot Noir and Chardonnay and wine for 3 days. And there's probably, I'll bet 75 or 100 people, I don't know what there was, big crowd. And he brings out like 25 servers with beer on the serving trays. And he says, you know how much beer we drink to make good wine? Like a ton, because they're so tired of tasting their wine. So what you guys must drink? Whiskey or something, right? What's it take, Warren? Tell us that. What's it take to make good beer?
Bourbon.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, like I really enjoyed sitting down with you, Mark, in our first conversation, because it's just, we kind of talked about the Doppelbock we were tasting at the time being a little bit more boozy, a wintertime beer, and just kind of when we talked about just the overall appreciation for alcohol on all levels, because to do it right for each product, it really takes a lot of effort and passion, because you can really taste the difference, I think, in products that don't have that same gusto behind it. And
we don't say that word in Great Falls.
Oh, that's right, because we are Eagle. That's right.
That's right.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Mark. Sorry, Mark. Mark Schwentes, that is.
Yeah.
Just joking around.
Yeah.
They're good. They're good friends and customers of ours too. Yeah. All right, I think I'm done. Unless you guys, anybody else have anything? Warren, Cody, I'm good.
The beer is great.
So we always do a cheers at the end, and we talk about tomorrow, which is an interesting. It's Elysian out of Seattle, and again, I don't know what I'm talking about, but they partnered with Anheuser-Busch a few years ago, and so this is our only big one that's online. The rest are all Montana breweries. We thought we should have one national representative, and that's why y'all got a Bud Heavy, or the King of Beers. We're going to have a representative from Anheuser-Busch on again tomorrow night too. So I don't know. I hope you all had fun, and I learned a lot, and we'll keep talking. And Warren, thanks. You were amazing. Thanks for the information. And Cody, thank you. And I can't wait to do a beer dinner with you guys once all of this is behind us. And cheers to everybody.
Cheers.
Yes. Cheers. Yes. Thank you, Warren. Excellent job as always, my friend. Mark, nice to see you again. Thanks for bearing with me on the technical side.
It'll all work out. We're just having fun. We're not trying to be serious here.
Yeah. Cheers, everybody. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.